I want to talk to you guys today about why owning a business is so challenging to build wealth and to retire off of. So, if you've watched the last few videos that I've made for you guys, you'll know that this is how I visualize cash flow. So, up top here, you have your income, and then you have your expenses. This is how any single financial life looks like. So whether you're the largest company in the world, NVIDIA, whether you are a 15-year-old and you just got your first job at the subway down the street, or if you're a 35-year-old father like myself with 3 young kids in a business, this is what financial lives look like. There is income coming in and there's expenses going out. And then on top of the income here, your balance sheet sits up top here. This is where your assets are. So what most people do, of course, is they have their job, they earn an income. Their income then goes through a checking account, and then their expenses are split up. Let's say this is taxes. Let's say this is, you have your housing costs, you have your fixed costs, you have your discretionary. And then, if you're like most Americans, this little extra spot here of income, you then use that to buy assets. Now, the basis of retirement planning and what I do for a living as a wealth manager is I help families do this. This mechanics here of this discretionary income, buying assets that then produce more income. And what happens over time, of course, and what you want to do is you want to create a financial life where you have more income than your expenses, right? Then you have this ball, which I call the income gap here. You want this ball to get expanding so that you can buy more assets and more assets. And this constantly gets bigger and bigger. Now, this concept here that I just described to you is what financial lives look like. But business owners is more complicated than that because they have two of these going on at the same time. So let me attempt to draw this out for you. So this is what a business owner's financial life looks like. So this is the business. Then what ends up happening is they have a sliver, let's just call it right here, that this then is this is their personal income and their personal expenses. I've helped a lot of business owners plan their retirements over the past decade in the work that I do at my company. And what I can tell you is business owners, it is significantly harder to retire than somebody who has just a regular W-2. And it is simply because of the complexity of business owners' financial lives. Simply because you have so much options here. Owning a business is very complicated in and of itself. And then when you put these two things together, what ends up happening is the business takes over and all of the effort and sacrifice goes here. And then what's left is business owners create, in many cases, good businesses, but their personal financial life doesn't reflect what they've built in their business. And at some point, whether a business owner, comes to terms with this or not, you've got to leave your business, right? Whether health scare takes you out, whether an untimely death, a disagreement with a business partner, divorce. There's so many different ways that a business owner can get detached from their business. Some good ways, like an exit, and a lot of bad ways, right? So what ends up happening for business owners is a lot of the effort goes into building the business. It is so difficult to go from 0 to $1 million in revenue or from 1 to 10 million in revenue in business. It takes a lot of time, usually, 10 years plus to do some of these things. And so what ends up happening is the personal life gets like weirdly intertwined with the business, right? And a lot of the investment right here. So let's just say this is personal income, but a lot of the investment that could be going into building assets as a family, it goes back into the business. Now, the further a business owner gets, the further you get into your career, let's say you're in your 50s and you've disregarded building assets outside of your business, the level of risk, of course, goes up. And this is where business owners, what they find is they really have to exit their business. They have to get a good exit. Or what ends up happening is they end up getting stuck in their business and they end up retiring really late in life. So if you've ever seen, a business owner in their later in their careers, the thing that I always try and empathize with them is it is incredibly hard to run a business. There's so many complexities in the business itself that is just normal almost from the work that I've done with people to almost disregard your personal side because of the effort it takes to run a business. And when I see these older owners, I just always remember of the work that it took to get there, the effort and the sacrifice, the hard conversations, the getting fired from great clients, key employees leaving. And I just try and remember to empathize that they may be stuck in their business. They may not want to work. They may have to work because of the choices that they inevitably made, earlier in their career to build the enterprise up top here. So if you are a business owner, here's how I would think about this. And here's how I think about this as a wealth manager who also owns his own business. So your business is up here and your personal life is right here. Now, as business owners, there's huge amounts of leverage up here, like I've already explained, right? There's a huge amount of opportunity, sacrifice that goes into making a business go. But what I always want to tell and remind business owners is to take some of the expenses of the business that could go into anything, right? So if you have, 5% of your business, 3% of your business, whatever the number is, that you could make an investment, you could make an extra hire, you could leave it in the business. But what I always remind business owners is to just carve off something, is to get the business and to get yourself into a habit of taking money out of the business regularly so that you can take this expense, it'll flow through as income. And then what you want to do is it'll flow through as income, but rather than just spending the money and going into an expense, I want you guys to actually focus on taking that money out and building assets. Now, what's tempting about owning a business, of course, is that if you're here or if you're at this stage running your business, you know that you can generate really, really high rates of returns if you're investing well inside your business, right? But the risk, of course, is if something goes south in your business, right? You never know what can happen. We're in the age of AI, right? In the field that I work in, wealth management, people are wondering and asking me, like, hey, are you going to have a job in 10 years with AI? Or are people just going to go on ChatGPT and get all of their financial advice on ChatGPT? I honestly don't know the answer. And this is exactly what I personally do, understanding that I have a lot of opportunities here, like this YouTube channel, talking to you on the internet, to build a really cool business. But I also understand that there's so much uncertainty here. So I want to get the business used to taking cash out and rather than just me spending the money, I actually want to build assets outside of the business so that when I'm 55 and Fjell could be a significant company or it could stay at the same size. I don't know. I sure hope that we have a huge impact on how business owners retire in America. But for now, I don't want to put all of my eggs up here. I want to build some assets and invest in other companies that are not my own companies that I'm a shareholder of outside. So this can compound here. Now, what ends up happening on a business owner's balance sheet, once they do this and once they really commit to running a business where they are taking distributions regularly, and rather than spending those distributions, they are building assets, what ends up happening is you take out risk in your financial life. So I said earlier how some business owners, they get to a point where their business itself is really valuable. And in order to retire, knowing that you just can't indefinitely spend or knowing that most business owners have to exit their business at some point because the business isn't big enough to hire professional executive teams, etc., where they have to sell their business. And so if they can't sell their business or they don't get the price they want, or if it takes 5 years to sell and you end up selling it for a third of what you wanted to, that ultimately adds a level of uncertainty in retirement planning. And in order to take risk off the balance sheet, we want to build assets outside of the business that are still equities, right? So I'm really talking about owning assets here outside of your business. This could be stocks, this could be municipal bonds. So what ends up happening over time is you can grow your asset base here. And what this does is it acts as like a counterbalance to your business. But this is only possible is if you actually end up running your business in such a way where you are taking money out and you are taking that as income, but rather than spending it, you are going right back up here on your balance sheet and buying assets. So this is why owning a business is so complicated, because business owners have two financial lives. They have to run the budget of their business itself, and then they somehow need to understand how to run their personal side. My experience again has been business owners put a lot of effort on their business. This is me, and they put less emphasis on their personal life. But again, at some point in time, you will retire, whether by choice or whether by life circumstance. And in order to do that well, I want you guys to really focus on this concept of first understanding it's complicated for everyone, and to really think through how you run your business, how you charge, how you take money out, the mechanics and the systems you build to do this well, so that you can build an asset base that is separated from your operating business, so that you can retire when you want. If you found value in this video, please like and subscribe. Leave us a comment below on your thoughts here. I've also put a pinned comment inviting you to join our free newsletter tomorrow. It's read by over 24,000 executives, entrepreneurs, and pre-retirees who are heading into their golden years. I'd love to have you on board. We'll see you guys next time.